The trust in you is very important. I keep repeating the trust word too much, but the banking is trust. Unless they trust you, that they can sleep that night peacefully 24/7, every day, every night, without thinking that systems will go down, that is when you're made it.
Welcome to the Startup Operator Podcast. I'm Roshan Karyappa. Today, India prides itself on having the best payment infrastructure in the world with UPI and India Stack and so on. But this innovation has been many decades in the making. My guest today has had a ringside view of this evolution for over 3 decades now. Mr. Nagaraj Mailandla is the founder and managing director of FSS Technologies that supports 600 million cards and works with India's leading banks like State Bank of India, HDFC, ICICI Bank, and Axis Bank. I spoke to Mr. Mailandla about his entrepreneurial journey of 3 decades, Omaha, Nebraska to Mumbai, about understanding tech as a non-engineer, how he was able to do that, how he was able to grow his business through partnerships, and much more. This was a fascinating conversation. At various points, it felt like a history lesson to me, and it lends great perspective on how things have evolved. So do check it out. Hello, sir. Welcome to the Startup Operator Podcast. Thank you so much for making the time for this.
Thank you, Roshan. I'm really happy to be on this call. Let's make it happen.
Fantastic. Thank you again. You have spent 3 decades building FSS, and 3 decades is a long time. People don't spend 3 years today, much less on solving problems or with organizations and trying to close the loop on whatever they're doing. Right? When you look back at the 3 decades that you've spent, what are some lessons that you've learned along the way?
The key one is very important, that you need to believe in what you're doing. Without self-belief and self-belief in your own capabilities, I would not have lasted the 30 years. And not only that, and whatever you believe in, you need to have a team who understands that domain to deliver. So I believe, and also believe today, in a very strong team to support what we are doing today. So over a period of time, initially I was a single man operation. Then we expanded to add technology people to deliver to the customers. Then came the sales and all the remaining organizations. Initially, I was the HR guy, I was the peon, I was the admin, I was everything, right? Accountant, right? Legal, corporate secretary, everything.
Right.
But as we expand, you need to ensure that we have a good team that can take on from what we, as an entrepreneur, we start and start helping us to expand the company. I've been blessed with a good team over a period of time. And in the last 3 years, or maybe 5 years, I've consciously moved away from on the ground operations, started delegating to people, and hired the right people in the right place. And today, I'm having only 3 or 4 people reporting it to me, when compared to having a army of people reporting into you. And that has been possible because consciously we put these things in place. At some point of time, doing this as an entrepreneur, I like the professional people to manage this company, right? And I sit back in the board and manage how they perform, rather than being on the ground doing everything myself. That is what I've achieved over the 30 years. And we have to be very clear from the day one that, as I told you earlier, the products and services need to be world class, right? People have to have trust in you that you can deliver, and they don't lose their money, because we are in the world of payments. The second level is you need to have a strong customer base, which we have today, built over a period of time, and repeat business from them. And we add new customers as we grow, not only within India, outside the country. And we have moved from a distribution-led company to a product company to a SaaS company today, and some point of time into the cloud. So all these journeys are important. If we cannot be static in one location. And also the channel-wise, we moved into every channel possible where payments can be made, and back office systems to support the channel expansion. That is what has helped us to stay in business over the 30 years. The next important thing is very, very clearly having the right partnerships, and ensure that the partnerships are backed by timely investments into the company, right? We have done 4 rounds of funding so far, and hopefully we'll be doing the 5th round once the COVID situation eases, either through private equity or through an IPO. It is still in the making. We could discuss that at a later point of time.
Fascinating. You've built this company over 3 decades, and you've gone through various different things, right? You spoke about people that report to you, people you trust to handle all of the operations. You spoke about customer acquisition and partnerships and so on, right? In this 3 decade journey, I want you to think back to the early days. What was it like approaching the first customer and asking them to trust you to do their work, which is perhaps
Yeah.
very, very critical, right? Considering
Yes.
that payments is something which is very integral to a bank, right? So there's a lot of
Yeah.
trust and credibility that goes with that. So
Yeah.
how did you manage to convince one of these large banks to take a bet on you?
Yeah. This was 89, 90. I focused on Indian Bank, which is based in Chennai. We did our research, and at the time, the chairman was very, very forward-looking. One of my advisors said, "Go sit there till you get the deal done with the bank."
Right.
So every day, I'll go to the same location, same sofa, and it took me 2 years to convince the bank to get it done.
Right.
It was not convincing the bankers; it was convincing the union leaders of the bank. It was the first ATM in the country which was by the Indian Bank. The first ATM switch was put by Indian Bank. Because at that time, Mr. Gopalakrishnan, the chairman MD, was very, very forward looking, and he made these decisions over a period of time. The first ATM cost 36 lakhs.
Wow.
And it had to be imported. We had to go stand in the customs to get it cleared. Right? I've done all those things. It was a good experience, exciting, and convincing the union guys were more important than convincing the bank. So the DGM told me, get that union guy to buy into this idea. I will sign on your orders.
Right.
Okay. So what I did was to go to the union office, made a presentation on what an ATM is, how it will be useful. That guy said, no, this will take away jobs. I'm talking about 89, 90. Okay. Right. Then I came back, discussed with the DGM, and I told the DGM, I'll put the money. I'll put the second ATM. First ATM was in the head office. Second ATM, I put it next to the union leader's home in Chennai in KK Nagar. 6 months later, when I went back to meet that guy, he said, can you put more boxes? I said, what box? On the petty, Tamil, on the petty போடுங்க. Right? ரொம்ப இன்ட்ரெஸ்டிங்காக இருக்கு, எனக்கு பைசா வருது. Right? After that, I've not looked back and, we started putting that, talking to IBA, the Indian Bank Association, various banks, various unions. It was not an easy thing people today take off so easily on the payment side because the base infrastructure, the core infrastructure has been put in place by us. Any bank, the core payment infrastructure from Mphasis, right? The core banking is from Infosys, or the networks is from Airtel or a Jio or somebody. These are the three pillars of payments and banking. Without core banking, you can't be here. Without the payment infrastructure, you can't be here. Without the networks, you can't be here.
Right.
So the initial stages of putting all these things together, partnerships together, was a challenging thing, but at the same time, and I enjoyed every bit of it. I had the opportunity in 89 to meet with Mr. Nandan Lekani. Later on became very good friends each other, right? And that's how Mphasis and Infosys partnered to put a joint solution together to almost every bank. I'm talking about from 1998 all the way up to 2000. We were in every bank together. Either we are front-ending it, or Infosys front-ending it, or a Wipro or HP front-ending it as a SI.
Right.
That experience made me go to the next level. Then started talking to TCS, Mr. Ramadurai, and various other people, and put a very tight partnership together. So wherever the core banking guys went, they took us as a common partner. That is not an easy achievement where three of them fight each other, including iFlex, but the partner is Mphasis. So that is how we established ourselves in every bank possible, working with the large guys. We are a small guy, so you have to always play your part in the partnership and be true to the partnership, right? That helped us to be there. The next level was on our own journey, directly working with the customer, because our products and services were well established. People called us and comparing to we going and approaching them for business. So each stage has been a very, very interesting stage, and I'm happy that we are here today.
So I want to talk a little bit more on that stage, right? Which is when you went from being a reseller of technology, being a partner of some of the international brands, to developing your own IP. And you mentioned earlier that it all happened because customers came to you and said, can you do this, or can you do something else, right? And you were always open to listening to the customer, and you prioritize their needs and their priorities, right? So talk to us about that journey, building IP as such. building your own product.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Yeah. See, 91, we started the company. In 98, 96, 98, we set up the shared network called Swadam, which was the first ATM network in the country in Mumbai. It was shared network in Mumbai. That gave us opportunities to build beyond the ATM and beyond the switch, products like card issuance, card management, reconciliation, right, merchant management. All those things were requirements. I could have gone outside to the US or Europe and brought partners again, right? But internally, we put our heads together and said, other than the switch, let us build our own product and surround the switch with all the products required to make payments happen. Right. That's how the journey started in 98. We are a full-fledged company today. Even today, the switch is not built by us. Otherwise, all products around it to make payments happen is from FSS today. And one day, the switch also will be ours, right? Wonderful. But building that journey requires a lot of commitment, and we earned from other businesses and put into the product business, right? We had revenue coming from our services, from the partnership sales and everything. That made us put the money into the product business and start building the product. Today, they stand on their own revenue. So we are able to reinvest into the product, and you'll see us go into the next level.
So, your journey...
So you need some source of income,
right,
initially, to withstand the product journey. It's not overnight.
Your journey also is slightly unconventional in the sense that you're not strictly a technology person. You are actually a banker by education, right? And by your profession as well. But then you had the confidence to build this technology company, and I feel like your domain experience was a key factor in your success, right? Because you could, I guess, talk to the banks in the language that they understood, rather than a technology person going and giving the innovation language. You could talk to some of these people in the language that they understood, right? So how has that helped you in your journey? Because when I listen to you, I mean, you also sound like a product person, like someone who can maybe do a roadmap of the solution and so on. So what has that journey been like for you?
It's been a very interesting journey, because when I went and met the customers, right? Initially, 89 and 91, I was working for somebody else, right? As a distribution channel, right? And an employee of that company. They were in the US, we are in India. I used to live as a paying guest, PG, in Mumbai, in Woodhouse Road. It was General P.N. Hoon, who was the chief of staff of Indira Gandhi, retired, and he had a room extra, so I used to stay there. It was a fantastic life, going to the US club and everything, and 4,000 rupees was my rent. So the reason I took it, because all the banks were in Nariman Point. So when I went and met each of these banks, they were the IT people at the time, not the business people. So you are selling to an IT person, selling the concept. So when I used to go and do that, I was also a learner. And when the questions came up, I used to send the questions in the evening back to the US. The next day morning, I had answers. So went back to the same customers and explained what it means. They were very impressed, saying that, oh, within a day, you are back with the answers. But actually, it's the back office in the US working for me. Today, it's the other way around. We work for the US and we provide that information today. Right? That helped me establish the trust with the bankers. The second level is I was very sincere. If I didn't know something, I'll say, I don't know. I'll come back to you. That is always appreciated, when you do business. Third level, I took pains to read the manuals, understand the technology, understand the domain. Domain knowledge is more important than the technology, because our technology started with Tandem, non-stop systems. Today, you're on open systems, Linux, Unix, and whatever it is, right? Technology changes over a period of time, but the domain of payments remains the same. It's the more channels have been added to it. From a branch to ATM, we have added digital and mobile. The means have changed, right? But the payments have not changed. So you need to understand the domain very clearly. As FSS, we understood our domain very well. That is how we succeed.
So one of the things that...
And personally, I was breathing payments. One of our earlier thing was we breathe payments. So actually I was breathing payments, and I understood it because of it.
So one of the things that is very apparent from, speaking to you is the amount of customer empathy that you have. And, we've spoken about it extensively in terms of how you are always listening to the customer, open to their ideas, so on and so forth. And how customer acquisitions itself for you has played a very big role in, your development as a founder and as a company itself, right? So can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, in terms of how your customer acquisition works and some of the lessons you've learned of, working with some of the largest banks in India, because I think today pretty much all of the banks use some form of technology that's offered by your company or the other.
That's correct. What I learned in my initial dealings with Indian Bank. You need to be humble. You need to relate to their their way of doing business and their way of living, which is mostly middle class background. I'm also from a middle class background. So initially, what I did was to ensure I was not overdressed, no suit, no tie. I used to go similar to what they come to office. Then they relate to you better. As you go up higher up the chain, you start wearing your suits and whatever you want. But on a day-to-day basis, it was a very normal working day. Establishing relationship, the trust in you is very important. I keep repeating the trust word too much, but the banking is trust. Unless they trust you, that they can sleep that night peacefully 24/7 every day, every night, without thinking that systems will go down. That is when you have made it, right? Today, that has changed to uptime. Uptime has changed to what you call acceptance today. Whether the transaction has been completed or not is more important today because technology is evolved. The speed with which the transaction happens is evolved. All these things are made what we are today, right? So we have evolved from keeping the trust going by better products, better functionality, better technology, better timing of delivery. All these factors have improved over a period of time as the banks have evolved as well. Today, we have moved from bank concentration to a processor or a network or an aggregator, merchant aggregator. So we have enough products today to cover not only the banks, other financial institutions, NBFCs, fintechs, big techs also are approaching for the middle layer. So you have to keep evolving. This is our 6th avatar in 30 years. And every time there is an investment required and a new journey begins. So I'm starting with 2 CEOs under me, the 6th avatar. I'm not directly involved and they're reporting to me so that we have a much better ground level interaction with the customers. I can't be there everywhere, but customer centric approach is very important.
So in the time that you have spent, right, payments itself has evolved a great deal, right? And we spoke about how we have gone from branch to ATM to today, digital. And earlier it was very infrastructure, very core work, right? And today it has become a lot more lucrative. You can basically integrate payments on your website or whatever, start collecting payments with about 5-6 lines of code, right? Things have completely transformed, right? How have you seen this evolution happen? Because I feel like your journey has been so fundamental. I mean, you've had a ringside view of how this entire space has evolved, payments itself in India. And payments itself is such a tip of the spear, right? I mean, it allows people to sell products and services. And, we've seen how UPI, for example, has transformed the economy itself, right? How have you seen payments evolve in this time, sir?
Yeah, if you look at it, the UPI or any of the digital side, it's a front end. That alone doesn't make this happen. The core things which have been evolved from a branch or an ATM today, same pipe is being used to expand into various channels. UPI is going the same way the ATM transaction went, but it is much faster, much simpler at the front end where a customer can onboard very easily. But the secure pipe is the same. That is where FSS comes into picture and providing the secure pipe, whereas the front end guys can hook onto it at any point of time, any minute in your life, or any second, right? We have enabled that. That is the strength of our company, providing that secure pipe. If the secure pipe has not been there, and the infrastructure in each of the banks were not there, evolved over a 30-year period, they could not have taken the UPI transaction. You had to build everything from scratch. UPI came into picture very easily because the backends were already there. Why it couldn't come 10 years ago? Because the technology was not there, right? And what is UPI doing is the same debit and credit. So it is the evolution of technology, evolution of ideas, evolution of bringing everything to an individual's hand. If you look at the evolution, people went to a branch to do banking. Then they were pushed to an ATM, pushed to something else. Today, because of COVID and before COVID itself, the digital transformation had already started. But today with the COVID thing, there are 3 or 4 things which are coming together. It is not payments alone. You're sitting in your office, sitting in your home, and doing your business online for everything. Whether you're buying something, somebody is delivering it to you, and you're making payments to it, everything is sitting in one location and doing. That is what the evolution has happened today. To make it happen, otherwise, what you had to do is to walk out of your house, go to a branch, go to an ATM, go to a point of sale, at a merchant location, make the payment. Today, that is being collapsed into e-commerce or m-commerce or payments being packaged with it. as we evolve, wherever you are, you should be able to do anything you want without moving from the location you are. That is where the industry is moving, the commerce is moving, and payments is nothing but moving together with the commerce, right? And if you're able to make sense of it, we'll continue to be in business.
So earlier you mentioned that fintechs are the service layer basically, right? And
The front end layer.
correct, the front end layer basically. And when we look at how technology adoption has accelerated in banks and financial institutions over the last 10, 15 years, it has been tremendous, right? I mean, every bank today is got digital as front and center and is working actively with the ecosystem as well. So how do you see the space evolve for various parts of the ecosystem, whether it's the banks or the fintechs or technology companies like FSS, for example? How do you see all of these operate going forward?
Well, one thing is very clear: there's no separate business called FSS and the banks, or banks and their customers, right? Everything is evolving to a situation where it is a cloud where all these institutions are to work together for the end customer to be comfortable and have a friendly user interface, and he should be able to do anything he wants from A to Z. So banking will be part of that overall ecosystem, not a separate system anymore. Earlier, you will buy the goods and make a payment separately. Today, you're buying the goods, making the payment, and receiving the delivery as well. So all these people have to work together to make it happen. If you go to one of the bank sites, or the bank send emails to me, the big offer here, do you want to buy? Are they selling banking today? They're selling M&S shirts and Adidas shoes and some food item, but everything is integrated today. That will continue to happen where an individual can do anything in his life from his mobile or some other instrument which replaces the mobile. Right? That is where we are heading. Yeah. And technology will be used to make it happen. They call it embedded, they call it so many things. What evolves finally is a period in time. A period belongs to ATM, a period belongs to banking branch, a period belongs to point of sale. Each is a period in which they've evolved and perfected it. So the volume will go spread out based on what the user wants to use. Some people will still say, I'll go to the branch. Let the COVID be over, I'll go back to the branch. Some people will be dedicated to an ATM. Some people will be doing digital. Everybody is not going to do digital. Whatever people may force them to do, there are habits formed which will make them go back based on the age group, based on various things. The age group barrier to some extent have been broken during this COVID period. What my son does, I do today, but I struggle a bit. And then he'll have a frowning face and say, you can't do this also. I did the same thing to my dad.
Right.
So the legacy continues, right? What I'm saying is, if you're smart enough, we can make enough business out of this.
So basically, the medium might change, but the customer experience will remain the same, basically.
Remains the same.
Right.
As long as, say, customer experience today has brought down to his own room. He had to walk out earlier. And younger people are happy doing that because they're doing multiple things, right? My son works for me the last 7 years, right? And he's part of the board now as well. And I have a backup for me built up internally. And the main backup is the professional people, the CEOs we have hired. But you need to have a mix. So he understands payments. He understands better than me the future. So a lot of things happen.
So one of the key attributes of working in this space is also the fact that regulators and policymakers also play a very important role, right? So what has been your experience of dealing with these people, and how have you sort of managed the relationship with these folks as required?
Yeah, we have always had a very cordial relationship with both RBI, NPCI, and MOF in Delhi. But we are not directly involved because we are a B2B company. We service the bank, we service the merchants, we service the financial institutions. They deal with the regulator, they deal with the compliance requirements. On their behalf, we are compliant. That's how I approach the overall thing, because it is better to leave it to the guys who understand how to deal with regulators. We have never been in the front end dealing with them. We are always behind a large institution which knows how to deal with it. And all we do is ensure that we sincerely work towards being compliant to whatever RBI or NPCI or the banks want us to do. That is how we have managed our 30-year life.
So one of the attributes of your founding journey and FSS itself has been the fact that you're always open to take calibrated risks, right? So whether it is investing in office space when you did not have as many people, or whether it is, as you mentioned right now, which is investing in an ATM when it was very it was still very early in the journey, right? So this risk taking, right? How do you make your decisions in a balanced way and also accommodate some of this risk taking ability?
Yeah, it's very difficult to answer that because when you're entrepreneur and you're on your own, I can make a turn in Nariman Point and make the decision. Between Cuff Parade and Nariman Point, I can make a decision. Today, you have an army of people who will go through the numbers, go through everything, and tell you what to do. But still, when it comes to your decision making, you have to be alert and you have to make that final decision because finally they depend on you to make the decision. That is today, at least for the last 1 year, I delegated to 2 people who can do the same job which I used to do earlier. Right. So it's a calculated risk. I always felt that if I take that calculated risk, what will you lose in the end? You always to gain. We have been in situations always where I had nothing to lose, but everything to gain. So we have to keep moving, keep making those decisions, and God willing, everything has been paid off. We didn't have to lose much. And good thing about this entire journey is good relationship. People who believed in me, people who believed in the company, and they're still in touch with us. Some people are in the 80s, some people in the 70s, some people in the 40s. Right? The age group doesn't matter, but the good memories of what we have done for them is what you carry. And I don't believe overnight money comes through hard work, perseverance, and you have to put that heart into the work for you to gain something in the end. And God willing, I've been kept well from a middle class to what I am today. I've been able to manage that wealth with humbleness, and my family also believes in that, being very simple and humble.
So on that same note, sir, what are your future plans with FSS? What are you doing to ensure that, the company becomes a generational company and it establishes its history and legacy and so on? So if you were to look at the next 20, 30 years, what are you doing right now to set the company up in a way that, it's going to outlast and become, one of those Hindustan Lever or, one of those types of generational companies?
One of the, yes. Our belief is that we can be a global payments company. To that effect, we've been able to manage our expansion to Middle East and Africa, basically South Africa now, and also ASEAN, beyond India. This year, our India business will be 70 to 75%, and the remaining business will be from overseas, number one. So I believe that in addition to your India business, we need to have a risk management capability of revenues coming from other countries as well. And a lot of times the bottom line comes from outside. The revenue comes from India because the larger deals are in India. But the L1 situation doesn't make you to make that much of margin. The margins come from the overseas business. So you have to mix and match to ensure that you have a healthy balance sheet. I always believed from day one that you should have sufficient cash in the company to ensure that we are able to withstand any negative situations and we are able to pay our salaries to our employees on every last day of the month. I'm glad that to say that I've been able to manage that for 30 years. Whatever it is, whatever the situation, we ensure that our employees got the money, whether we got it or not. That is what keeps the company going because they believe by the employees that we are a good company to work with, right? I'm not rated by, Glassdoor and all those guys, but I'm rated by my employees, right? Yeah, that's how we have managed. And the future, the entire team is working on strategy. We have BCG and other people helping us today on what the next 5 to 10 years has to be, taking us from what we are today to the next gen payment, next gen business, and where we have to put our money into. All those things are the 6.0 I'm talked about on FSS. And fortunately today, it is not a single man's work. It is beyond me and beyond, there's a team working on it.
So, this has been a fascinating conversation.
And I'm sure one day when we meet again, we will be a truly global player.
Right.
There, but not fully there.
Fantastic. So this has been
that Indian company, payments company from India.
So, this has been a very fascinating conversation for me. I mean, it has been a history lesson of sorts, right? Because I think, we take a lot of things for granted today. You can make one-tap payments and so on and so forth. But all of this has been built on the work that you and your team have done over the last 30 years. And really hats off to you on that front. For final question before we end the podcast, for any founders listening to this, what are some lessons in order to build a sustainable business?
Basically, I told you that in the beginning, is that you have to believe in yourself, believe in your capabilities, believe in what you can deliver. Once you do that and the customer believes you, you're done. Get that trust of the customer is very, very important. Once you have the trust and you don't do things which will spoil that trust, you're in business forever. And what you add to that is important, your team, your domain knowledge, your investments, the right kind of investors, right kind of partnership, because a single company cannot succeed today on their own. You have to have the right partnerships. And the partnerships for us have changed over time from a HP, IBM, Sun, and Infosys, TCS, Wipro, all those things. Today, more and more it is towards being with Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Oracle, or any of these things. The partnerships also change as your business mix changes and your customers' requirement changes. So all these things are very important as you flow. You have to take the flow and ensure that you are able to, prepare yourself for change and accept the change. I've gone through my own acceptance of change. It is not easy because you believe that you are a strong player, but it is not. You have to keep changing to be in that position.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, sir. Really appreciate your insights and wisdom. Thank you for sharing all of this on the Startup Operator podcast. Look forward to talking to you very soon, and all the best for all of your future initiatives.
Thank you very much, Mudit.
Thank you so much for listening. If you liked this episode, then don't forget to subscribe to us on your favorite platform and share this episode with all of your fellow startup operators. Also, follow the Startup Operator on LinkedIn and Twitter for more updates. Stay safe, take care, and see you soon on a brand new episode of the Startup Operator.